Hey guys, thanks for taking the time to watch another video. Appreciate you tuning in to watch this one here. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do so. I would greatly appreciate that. And if you have any comments or questions, please submit them in the section below. You know where it is. Let's get into this story here. I want you to see this story that came up. This would have been, as you can see at the top, the story was put out on Wednesday, August 26th, and it was referring to a radio interview with this man here, Raphael Warnock, who is the pastor for the Ebenezer Baptist Church, the widely known Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia, where Martin Luther King had preached back in the 60s. He is going to be running for a Senate seat this coming election here in November. The former senator, the U.S. senator from Georgia, Johnny Isakson, had to resign from his seat, and due to health reasons. The last thing I saw, his third term, it began in 2016. As you know, senators go for 6 years, so he would have had to go through 2022. So there's going to be a replacement elected for that seat this coming November, and Raphael Warnock, the pastor for the Ebenezer Baptist Church, is going to run for that spot. Last Thursday, not last Thursday, but Thursday the 20th of August, he was interviewed on Tim Bryant's show, Mission Tim Possible. And he was asked concerning the subject of abortion. I wanted to listen to his radio interview. It lasted for about 12 minutes or so, but you can see, let's see here, where are we at? It's about 12 minutes. And the section that covered the issues I want to look at, it lasts about 2 minutes or so. And so I would encourage you to go listen to the whole 12 minutes if you'd like. If you want to catch the entire context, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to address as what I'm going to point out here. But listen to the whole thing if you like. You can see here's the site where the article is, so you can go check on there. And I keep hitting the wrong tab, and there we go. So let's go on here, and I'm going to comment on a few things Warnock has to say, because he's going to uphold the position that allows for legal protection for a woman to abort her child during pregnancy. And he's going to be asked about that being consistent or not with his position as a preacher or as a pastor who teaches and believes in the Bible. So listen to what Mr. Warnock says as he is interviewed by Tim Bryant.
I don't know where you are on the issue, and let's dive into some issues here. I know where the Democrats as a party are on this issue, and I know where the church generally is on this issue. You as a pastor, as a minister, you're in a Democratic party that is in a very one-sided fashion pro-choice on the question of abortion. How does that square with your role as a minister, a leader of a church, a man of God?
I believe that health care is a human right. And I believe that it is something that the richest nation in the world provides for its citizens. And for me, reproductive justice is consistent with my commitment to that.
So stop right here for a minute. He first off says, and I just wanted to point this out, I don't know how many times you have to tell people that healthcare, let's define healthcare. This is kind of off topic, but let me just say this real quick. You have a right, folks, to eat the right food and take care of you and manage your own diet. You have a right to exercise as you please, as is fitting for your own desires. You have a right to get good rest. You have a right to get whatever rest you want to seek. And those things are healthcare. Those are healthcare measures that you have a right to. You have a right to take care of your own body and your own health, psychologically and physiologically. What you don't have a right to is the knowledge and services that others can provide. You do not have a right to those things. And so when people talk about healthcare being a human right, we should define exactly what it is that talking about healthcare, because we're not talking about people taking care of themselves. Everybody knows that. What we don't have a right to is this issue that other people should be able to just provide you with their services, with their labor and their knowledge, and at no cost, and they should just lose on that basis. But either way, he goes on to say human or healthcare. He talks about reproductive justice being consistent with his view. Notice the terminology is pretty vague there. We know what it is, though. We know what it involves. But reproductive justice, because when you say justice, of course, that appeals to people. Who would be against justice, right? Well, when we look more into what's going on behind reproductive, quote, reproductive justice, you'll see there's quite an injustice, and I would argue the greatest injustice that's going on in our nation today. But let's go on here for just a little bit, and I'm going to stop in the head.
I believe unequivocally in a woman's right to choose, and that the decision is something that we don't want government engaged in. But that's between her and her doctor and her minister.
Okay, so now we get down to it. Here's the reproductive justice he's talking about, and everybody knows what it is, but he believes he believes in a woman's right to choose. But you know what's funny? People just stop right there. Ask the question, right to choose what? You believe in a woman's right to choose what? To choose to what? Abort her child? Abort that child that's growing in her womb? Abort that child that has a heartbeat? Abort that child that has its own separate DNA? Abort that child that is your flesh and blood and nobody else's, except for his father, her father, whoever. That's what you're having to, that's what you are talking about. A woman has a right to choose to kill her unborn child. And notice what he says, the government should stay out of that. And this is why I call it the greatest injustice that's going on in our society, because what we have thousands, that's not a mistake, folks. Thousands of abortions going on every day in America. And guess what? The government and this man here and many others want to protect that tragedy, that atrocity. I mean, that's exactly what it is. And he says the government should stay out of this business. You know what is funny to me? Is it, you hear those people saying things like this, the government needs to stay out of a woman's vagina, things like that, sometimes pretty crude the way they put it, but you know how people can be. But it's funny, if a man rapes a woman, now the government needs to get all up in there and be involved in her vagina as much as she can so we can prosecute that man, get that man in trouble, right? But if I want to kill my unborn child, well, government, get out of my face, get out of my business, get out of my bedroom. And what's interesting is, why is it the unborn? This is why people like Mr. Warnock and others need to be forced and pressed the question pressed upon them, what is the unborn? You're okay with a woman being provided this right, as you call it, or as you would, where this woman should be able to do this to her child. And you call this justice. But what's interesting to me is, what if, let's just say, a woman said, you know what? It's been 6 months since I've given birth. Raising this child's hard. I'm depressed. I've gained a lot of weight. I'm really stressed out. I didn't know. I'm in over my head. I want to be able to take my child and I want to throw my child off this bridge. And I don't want the government involved. And I'll just have my counselor or my doctor, whoever, will talk with me about this and help me decide if I can toss my child off the side of that bridge or not. Should that be allowed? Ask Mr. Warnock that question. Should that be allowed? Should a woman be able to be protected legally to throw her 6-month child, or even a 2-year-old, let's just say 2-year-old? Had enough, kids always disrespected, but making a mess of the carpet, spilling food everywhere. I had enough. My job is suffering because of it. I'm losing my income. Can't work as many hours. God, just take the kid down and throw him over the edge, be done. Why not? Why can't we do that? You can't dismiss it on the basis, well, that's just silly. You need to answer that. And if you're not okay with those situations, then why are you allowed to do it? Why are you okay with doing that to an unborn child? Goes back to the question, what do you think the unborn child is? What do you think the unborn is? Science tells us that's a living human being in there. A separate, unique individual of the human species. Let's go on and listen to more.
And I will fight for that in the United States Senate. And at the same time, continue to fight that women can receive the kinds of services that they need in order to have a healthy pregnancy and healthy babies.
So he wants to make sure, he said he's going to fight for this, and he wants to make sure these women have these needed services. Is that what it is? Women need services to help them kill the unborn, to help them dismiss their child from its natural habitat. Where's the child going to go? That's where it belongs at that age or that stage of development, isn't it? Can't tell to go down to the foster care, foster home, whatever. It's not going to be able to go there. That's where it belongs. And you're going to run it out of the only place where it can survive. He talks about the women, he wants to make sure that they can have, notice this, he wants to make sure that these services are provided, these needed services, so women can have what? Healthy pregnancies. Well, isn't that nice? I mean, it's nice that we want to make sure that mom is healthy. I agree. Mom should always be, I have no problem at all with mom being protected, because my position, and I want to clarify for myself, my position as a pro-life advocate, I would just say is this. I believe all human beings have a right to life. All human beings have the right to life. And because of that, the government should be protecting each individual and the safety of that, and making sure that that right is secure. So both mom and baby deserve that protection. But he wants to make sure that the pregnancy is healthy, which I agree, but healthy for who? For mom? Is that what we want to do? Is we want to make sure that even if it requires killing somebody else, that one person's health, that one person's health is maintained? Is that the rationale we have descended to? That it's okay to kill off a certain class of people on the basis that we're protecting or securing the health of another? And he says he wants to make it to where that it's a healthy pregnancy and what? A healthy baby. What on earth are we talking about, people? You want to allow, how is this healthy for the baby when you kill the baby? Explain that one to me, Mr. Warnock, and anybody else who agrees with what he's saying. How is it healthy for a baby in the womb when they are killed? What pregnancies is he talking about keeping healthy? The ones where the woman decides to carry full term and deliver? Is he only going to make sure those are healthy? But the ones where the woman wants to abort her child, that's okay. Because that sure is not healthy for the child. And it's definitely not healthy for the woman as well. That's another issue we'll look at in a later lesson about the dangers of abortion practices and abortion methods.
A maternal death rate in this country that is exceedingly high, particularly to be the richest country in the world. Our infant mortality rate in the country and in Georgia is exceedingly high. And the death rate for black women as a result of childbirth is 3 to 4 times that of white women. And you will see me as someone who's been focused on these issues for years, really since I was 19 years old and served on the Southern Regional Task Force on Infant Mortality. I've been focused on women's health, women's choice, and reproductive justice. That is consistent with my view as a Christian minister, and I will fight for it.
So he's going to fight for this idea once again of, he points out the maternal death rates, which is a common objection, or a common issue that's brought up in the discussion of women's health care and the access to abortion and the access to they call this reproductive justice and all and so forth. Let me just say right off the top that there are maternal death rates at a higher rate, at disparities and so forth. I agree that those need to be addressed, because every person we should be seeking ways to find out to help the safety and security, the health of every person, whether born or unborn. And so, yes, those mothers who are suffering at a higher maternal death rate, those communities where there are higher rates, we need to address those issues and make sure we're doing what we can to help balance those things out to where all things are being done to help make sure these mothers are safe while they're pregnant, while they are carrying their children. But again, I would ask the question, what are we saying, though? Are we saying that we're going to protect women? We're going to make the rationale is what? It's going to be, if it leads to women being safer during their pregnancies, we should give them the option of killing their unborn child. Is that what we're offering up as an answer to, the safety of women's health or women's health issues? Is that, here's a woman who's pregnant, she's in an unsafe condition, or she could be facing an unsafe situation, so allow her to abort her child. Or, it's not just that, it's just any time a woman is what the law allows, really for any reason. But folks, I would tell you right now, I would suggest to you that the answer to making sure women are safer is not giving them the option of killing their unborn child. How does killing another person help to increase safety? when it actually increases the violence altogether. And so, no, maternal death rates, that's just something that he points out here, and he says it's consistent with his view. And now we're going to get into the question of this, Tim Bryant's going to ask him about how does this square away with what God's view says. And here's the last point.
You think it's consistent with God's view, that God endorses the millions of abortions we've had in this country since Roe v. Wade?
I think that human agency and freedom is consistent with my view as a minister.
And there you go. That's it. He was asked, did you see that, folks? Run the video back here if you didn't listen. He was asked if he thinks that if what he's advocating is consistent with God's word. He'd never even answered that question at all. All he said was he thought that human agency and freedom was consistent with what? My view. Did you hear that? Never answered it. Because he knows good and well that the Bible doesn't condone any such thing as what he's trying to advance here. So he says it's my view. It's consistent with my view. And that's a good answer because if he's trying to run for a senator, you have to polish your speech pretty well. Nothing wrong with cleaning up your speech and making sure that it's intelligent and reasoned well and all that. I agree with that 100%. But if you're polishing up your speech so as to leave out vital and significant information that can affect the very individuals, or rather it could affect the very safety of individuals who would be those who you represent, then I would say you need to rethink what you're saying. The idea of reproductive justice, that's what people bring up, reproductive justice. And then this issue here about him never even addressing what the Bible says about it. Let me close off with a couple passages here, folks. Look at Psalm 139. And this is something that I will treat more heavily in an upcoming lesson I'm going to bring up about this whole topic. But look at Psalm 139 here in verse 13. For you formed my inward parts. You covered me. That's personal pronoun. Me. You covered me in my mother's womb. You covered me in my mother's womb. The person is identified, the psalmist is identifying himself as present in the womb. Because if the womb was not an individual human being, if it was not a person, then the psalmist couldn't refer to himself in the womb because that wouldn't be him yet, right? But he says, you covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in secret and skillfully wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Your eyes saw my substance. See that, folks? Your eyes saw my substance being yet unformed. Exactly. That child is growing in the womb. It's not fully developed. A 2-year-old's not fully developed. A 15-year-old is not fully developed as a human being. But the psalmist identifies himself as being an existing being in the womb of the mother. Your eyes saw my substance being yet unformed, and in your book they all were written, the days fashioned for me, when as yet there were none. Let's check out one more passage here, and we'll drop it there, and you guys can take this video for what it's worth. Y'all know this one very well. Proverbs 6, verse 16, these 6 things the Lord hates. Yes, 7 are an abomination to him. Whenever I think of abomination, I always think of a garbage dump. It's filled with trash, things that are, for the most part, worthless, used up, and stink. That's what the idea of abomination means. These things stink to God. They're foul. They're disgusting. And he says in verse 17, a proud look, a lying tongue, and what? Hands that shed innocent blood. And folks, does blood get any more innocent than the unborn child who has never even had the opportunity to think or act? Is that child the most innocent form of human life there is? Absolutely. Absolutely. And what happens? What happens when we exercise things such as reproductive justice and what that includes, including the idea of abortion. We are shedding innocent blood. And this man here and many, many, many others want to support that idea. And this man has the gall, the audacity to say that is something he can do, he can support while preaching out of God's word. Folks, that is abhorrent, and that should be wholly rejected, such an idea as that. I'm going to stop there because this is not intended to be a very long video. It's intended to be pretty general. But I want you to think about these things because I am planning to I'm still developing, in the process of developing, gathering a lot of information because I want to do a very comprehensive treatment on the issue of abortion from a multifaceted approach. And it's going to be take a long time to do, but I'm going to really enjoy it because those of you who know me know that that's my passion. When it comes to ethical issues, that's probably my number one. And but anyways, I appreciate y'all taking this time. What do you think about what Mr. Warnock wants to do? What do you guys think about him trying to run for the Senate and to uphold, not necessarily run for the Senate, that's fine, but uphold the idea of, quote, reproductive justice, aka abortion, and things that would abortifacients and things that would cause, things that would cause an unborn child to die. What do you think about that being consistent with him standing in a pulpit and preaching the Bible to an audience of people? Leave your comments and questions in the section below. Again, if you haven't subscribed already, I'd greatly appreciate it. You all take care. Have a wonderful week, and I will catch you on the next one. Take care.